New details coming out today of that daring Navy SEAL raid that killed Osama bin Laden in Pakistan. There are also new questions tonight over Pakistan's role in all of this. Members of Congress want to know what, if anything, Pakistan knew about bin Laden's whereabouts for the past few years. Those lawmakers are threatening to cut off billions of dollars in aid until they get answers. Joining me now, Texas Congressman Paul, a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee and a presidential candidate. Congressman, welcome back to the show. It's great to see you.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
All right, so I want to start with this, what went on, the killing of Osama bin Laden. Both sides of the aisle are saying, hey, this was a great thing. The president did the right thing. Here's what Steny Hoyer had to say.
He was courageous in authorizing this action. We know that its success was not guaranteed, but obviously the preparation, the courage, the skill of those Navy SEALs made it an extraordinarily successful enterprise in accomplishing the objective for which we have all waited so many years.
So Hoyer is just one of the folks out there saying this was a great job, well done by the president. You haven't said anything yet. What's your read on this?
Well, I think I'm like all other Americans. I'm glad he's gone. Unfortunately, it doesn't solve any of our problems. I think it raises more questions, especially the circumstances. But the big question is why did it take 10 years to get one guy? And why did it cost us 5,000 Americans and 40,000 bad casualties and $2 trillion to get one guy out of the way? I think it's good that he's gone, and he was a participant. He was delighted with 9/11, so if we went over there to get him, I guess it's time to come home as far as I'm concerned.
Congressman, why do you think it creates more problems than it solves?
Well, you don't know what the reaction will be, overseas. I mean, this might stir up more hatred, not that we should have changed our mind about it, but that's one of the ramifications. But it stirs up questions about exactly how it was done, and maybe we will get all the answers. Exactly why and when. I was wondering, when I first heard it, that the news was that it was done like on Sunday afternoon by Sunday evening. The first claim was that they had DNA proof of who it was that they killed. I thought, well, you don't get DNA evidence quite so quickly. So I think there was too many questions. There'll probably be somebody coming up with a conspiracy theory. But overall, I think most Americans have been very delighted and hope we can go forward and improve on our foreign policy. And now that this is settled and the people responsible for 9/11 we've captured or killed, I think that there's no justification for nation building. See, this is what bothered me the most was the Al-Qaeda 9/11 was the excuse to go into Iraq, and they weren't even there. So right. I'm looking at the overall foreign policy that ought to be changed instead of saying, well, let's keep doing it forever and ever and never change our ways.
Congressman, to that foreign policy issue, a lot of people now saying, why are we giving money to Pakistan? Let me show our viewers how much money we're giving them. Between 2002 and 2010, we gave them $18.6 billion. The estimate for 2011, $3 billion. For 2012, another $3 billion. It goes on, and let's keep in mind here that Osama bin Laden was 40 miles from the capital of the country. Are we getting our money's worth from the Pakistanis?
Absolutely not. We didn't get our $50 billion or $70 billion worth given it to the Egyptians either. And if you check my record, I've been complaining about money going to Pakistan for a long, long time. And now they're saying, well, we're going to ask them to prove that they didn't know that bin Laden was in their country. Or we'll take their money away from them. Well, we shouldn't have ever given it to them. This is why the whole principle of foreign aid is wrong. As long as they do what we tell them, then we give them money. If they don't do what we tell them, we bomb them. When it comes to Pakistan, we do both. We both bomb them with our drones. At the same time, we give them money. And at the same time, they're protecting our biggest enemy, bin Laden. So it's a bad foreign policy. It's deeply flawed, and I'd hate to see it perpetuated. I'm glad they're asking questions like this because I would certainly vote to take away the funding, but I would vote sooner, and that is I wouldn't have given it to them in the first place.
Well, obviously, Ted Poe introducing legislation that would take that money away, and I assume you would vote in favor of that legislation, correct?
Yeah, I would, but it's almost endorses the conditions that if you do what we tell you, we won't take it away from you. And of course, my principle is I wouldn't give it to him in the first place. But I can't always get my way. So I think what Ted Poe is doing is a proper thing to do, and I at least could support that.
Well, you know, the president is benefiting from all of this. His poll numbers are up. Washington Post published a poll that showed an approval rating of 56% for the president. What do you make of that? I mean, is the president the person to congratulate on this? Is there anybody else?
Well, you know, there's a little bit of luck in all this, and you know, people's attitudes change rather quickly. I remember where senior President Bush's ratings were right after the Persian Gulf War, and they were sky high, and then he lost the election. So the American people, you know, shift their views rather quickly. I think he's benefiting by it and may well in the future, but I think economics will dominate the campaign next year. I think inflation is not going to go away, and this will, you know, even the markets settle down. Yesterday the markets were sort of excited. The excitement didn't last that long. So I don't think there's any guarantee that this will guarantee that he'll have smooth sailing next year at all. Economic policy will be the big issue.
Well, that same poll doesn't show any improvement for the president when it comes to the handling of the economy, which brings up Tim Geithner, who's been pressuring Congress to get their act together when it comes to the budget. He's worried about the debt ceiling, and he sent a letter saying in pretty emphatic wording that we need to make sure that we act before the May 16th deadline. Do you think it's as important to hit that deadline?
Not as much as he does. As a matter of fact, he's backing away from that. He thinks he can fudge the figures all the way into August now. But no, we're out of control, whether it's the military budget or the entitlement system. There's not going to be any serious cuts on this. And as long as we have the Fed there to print the money, they're going to argue the case. Just keep increasing it. We can handle it, but just, you know, don't stop the party. And that's what's going on, is a party for everybody, and we don't cut back. But what it leads to is the devaluation of the dollar and, of course, higher prices. So that's why we should put a stop to it. That's why I certainly wouldn't support raising the debt limit.
Well, Congressman Paul, Federal Reserve, a conversation for another day. Please come back. We'd love to have you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.